So today I'm going to be reviewing the anime Future Diary, also known as Midai Nikki, as well as its follow-up OVA, Future Diary Reloaded. Now, Future Diary is a 26-episode series that aired throughout October 2011 through April 2012, and it's based off the manga by Sakai Esuno. Now, off the gate, I gotta tell you that this series is absolutely insane. It literally jumps into several different genres, which are psychological, supernatural, action, romance, survival, horror, suspense. Yeah, that's a lot. So basically, the premise of this series is that 12 people were thrown into the survival game where pretty much they gotta fight for their lives, and the last one that wins will take over as God, because the god Deus is pretty much deciding that he wants to pass on the throne for a new god to come. Now, some of the main characters are Yukiteru Amano, also known as Yuki. He's the male protagonist of the series, and a lot of the times is the whiny guy or the suddenly brave guy. Also, the guy with the stalker girlfriend. There's Yuno Gasai. I gotta let you know throughout this video I have somewhat of a bias for Yuno Gasai because I think the character is absolutely amazing. So yeah, she's the female protagonist of the series, as well as the absolutely obsessive stalker to Yukiteru Amano. There's Minene Uryu. She's one of the other participants in the game, and she's pretty much just a terrorist nut job, but at the same time she does have somewhat of a good heart in there, somewhere in there. There's Aru Akise, which pretty much he comes in a bit later in the series, but nonetheless he's more important, and he's pretty much just like this guy that records a lot of information. I'll leave it at that. And there's also the god Deus, which pretty much, you know, he's the guy that started all this, as well as his helper Murumu. If you watch every special with Murumu, you'll probably kill yourself, be warned. So to start off with the story, I gotta say that pretty much the first half of the series is absolutely incredible, and it just really messes with your mind, because again, this is a survival horror anime along with a lot of other things, suspense, psychological, and there's just so many twists and turns. And I think one of the most important parts about the story is actually the interaction between the characters, because I think it's a very basic plot, like I said, set up. There's 12 participants, and they're given these diaries where pretty much these diaries tell the future in one way or another, because they have different diaries set up. So for example, Yuki's diary is pretty much a diary of his surroundings, because he's kind of like somewhat of a recluse, where pretty much he just always records everything around him and doesn't really have any friends. So his diary is implemented as he just records the surroundings of him. Meanwhile, Yuno's is the Yukiteru diary, where pretty much she records everything that he does. And I think a main focal part of the series in general is just really relationships and how these characters interact with one another. I'd say, if anything, this anime is more so of a character-driven show, because the plot is basic and set up, and you know, you have your plot right there, but then you have the characters, and I think the characters absolutely drive this series, and it's one of the most beautiful things about it. And I use beautiful very loosely, because there's a lot of gore, blood, and mayhem in this anime. On a personal level, one of my favorite things about the anime is the interactions between Yuki and Yuno. I feel as their relationship is so twisted, but yet so beautiful at the same time, because it's really starting off as one girl obsessed with this guy, and then it turns into something a lot more crazier, and every time you think you finally figured it out, it keeps on twisting and turning on you. And that's one of the amazing things about Future Diary, because even throughout all the mayhem, all the murder, the carnage and everything, there's still this somewhat love and just this crazy twisted reality that is Yuki and Yuno. But it's not always like that. There are some times where the anime will give you a nice moment to relax and think and look at the characters in a more natural setting, which is what humanizes the show in general, because there are some moments where they're not killing people, still in the survival game, but they're not going at each other's necks. There's some moments where they're literally just in the house with their parents. And to be honest with you, if what I'm about to say never actually went down, I probably would have given this anime somewhere in the 10. Because the problem with the anime literally doesn't start until towards the end of the series. And that's pretty much where a lot of the supernatural elements start to take a little bit more notice and gradually start to become more of a focal point in the series. Because throughout most of the anime, the supernatural stuff like the diary that could tell the future, the gods and stuff like that, don't really play a big part. They're not that central to the story. They're there, but they're more sort of an undertone instead of being a focal point. But as the story progresses, especially towards the end, I feel as though the supernatural stuff definitely take more of a notice, and that's where the story starts to get a little bit convoluted, and it pretty much starts messing with the story and starts making you feel a little bit less attached to what you know. Because for the longest time, it's set up as is a survival horror. People are killing, anybody can kill you, and it's grounded to reality where, you know, somebody stabs you, shit can go down, and you die. You have these supernatural diaries that can tell the future along the way. But as it progresses, it continuously adds more of the supernatural elements, especially with the Deus god. That's definitely one of the problems with the series, because the series prior to these supernatural elements taking more precedence was actually very freaking well done. Like I said, I probably would have given the series a 10 had these events not come to take more notice. But definitely towards the end, it just really becomes something very different, and it still is good, but it just really doesn't have that same feel as when you first started the series. But I gotta say, the one main thing that I love about this series is that throughout all the changes throughout the series, everything, the one constant is Yukiteru and Yuno. And that's one of the things I love, and one of the things I think is very special about this series is that throughout everything, you still have a constant. But it's these supernatural elements that really just start to take a toll on the story and what was previously set up. A small example of the supernatural elements taking more precedence is that all of a sudden, towards the end, there has to be this big meeting, and if they don't show up, they're pretty much going to be disqualified, when this was never even stated to begin with that, oh, there's going to be surprise meetings or anything like that. So it just really makes you think, what's going on? Why all of a sudden are supernatural things becoming more present in the story? I'm not going to get into some of the more Dragon Ball Z-ish elements later on. But I want to stress that even with these problems, yet again, I say that this is still a very well done anime. Because like I said in the beginning, the series is more so character driven. Yes, you have the story going on, the plot and everything, but I think the characters is what's mainly the important thing about this series, and it's just the elements around it that are kind of like an undertone to the characters themselves, their interactions and what they're going through. And I guess another problem is that a lot of things happen sudden, and it kind of feels a little bit left of explanation. Like sometimes it just seems like this just happened randomly, and I think that's just mainly a lack of transition with the manga to the anime, because the manga is 59 chapters and the anime is only 26 episodes, which automatically makes it that it possibly could have used a few more episodes to cram everything in more nicely. But overall, the story is still a very good story, and I gotta admit that even with the problems toward the end, I still was thinking about it and still enjoying the concept that was previously set up, even though it evolved into something that wasn't the greatest. Now, as far as music goes, I gotta say that the opening pretty much says it all. If you want to learn more about this series, then you definitely watch the opening, because it gives you everything. It gives it in a very sick and crazy way with the song and the visuals, and it just really shows you what you're getting into. Opening 1, I mean. Opening 2, I'm not that fond of, and ending 1, I'm more fond of as well than ending 2. Although the OVA Redial has an awesome opening as well. Now, as far as voice acting goes, since you have a wide variety of characters, like I said, there are 12 people participating in the game, as well as surrounding characters around it, you get very solid performances, and some of the times it gives you goosebumps at how crazy these performances are. But I gotta say, without a shadow of a doubt, the strongest performance is Yuno Gasai. When she says, Yuki, at first you'll want to piss yourself, and if you're like me, you'll probably be like, oh, she's so freaking adorable. So performance-wise and music-wise, this definitely gives you a proper sound and just a crazy mix, I'll tell you that much. Animation was par for the course for the most part with this one. It was good. It wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't anything special, but it definitely did the job, and it was just good all around. It wasn't anything over the top, and it didn't really dive into the bad or anything like that. It was just good. Now, as far as my own experience with this series, as far as, you know, just enjoyment, what I thought of it just on a more personal level, critic aside, I gotta say that it was definitely just one hell of a ride, and I highly recommend that if you want a crazy, supernatural, psychological, suspenseful, romance, action, horror, survival, this is probably for you. Because critiques aside, I truly did have a freaking amazing time with this series, and I would not in a million years take back watching this one, especially for Yuno Gasai. Like I said, I have a soft spot for her. Now, to touch up on the Redial, the follow-up to the series, I definitely gotta stress that it is very important that you watch this, because it is the true ending to the series. While there are a lot of filler bits in there that was made up just to make a nice round 20 minutes, the ending of it is definitely the follow-up and the finale to the series. So if you're not satisfied with the ending of the actual anime, then I highly recommend you check out Redial, because it does have bits that I don't really care for. Like, for the most part, in the beginning, it really feels like a typical OVA with the beach episode, but it does dive into what is very important and the true ending to the series, because the anime literally finishes off just pages before the true ending of what actually happens. And I think without Redial, my heart would have been in the blender. So again, I stress, watch Redial after the series. I don't know if it'll make you hate it or love it, but nonetheless, it's important because it's the true ending from the manga. So all in all, with Future Diary, this is a very good series. It has its problems towards the end, and it's not the most solid animation, but I definitely say that nonetheless, it's very good. I give this one 8.5 out of 10. I had a blast watching this, and as far as story-wise, it's not the greatest story. It's very simple, but it gives you some very crazy stuff, but the characters is really what you gotta look out for if you watch this series, because the characters, Yuno Gasai, Yukiteru Amano, Inene Uryu, all these characters in there, including a lot of the people that are in the survival game, are just crazy, and even some of the bystanders as well will get you into the series, because there's just so many good characters in the series that'll really leave you going crazy. Let me know what you guys think. If you've seen Future Diary before, did you enjoy it? Did you have the same type of problems I had with it? Were there any different type of problems you had with it? Or if you haven't seen it, will you check it out? But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for Future Diary, because regardless of what, I had a blast, and I think it's an exceptional anime. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.